I usually do a written version of the newsletter, the Ukraine Dispatch, but today, since I'm very limited on time, I really don't have the time that I usually would take to do all the videos and put together a script and ultimately just a giant newsletter, because usually I write out scripts and then I kind of piece all that information together for the newsletter. So I figured let's just kind of break this down into just a quick little video so that you understand what's going on, because I would say after yesterday's kind of major headlines, we really haven't heard much today, mostly because I think U.S. negotiations are slowing down a little bit, since now it's like Ukraine already has been heard from the U.S. The U.S. is now kind of getting ready to then bring that to Russia, even though Russia does already have it. And we're already getting signs from Russia that they don't like this. And it all kind of comes together as we're waiting for Steve Witkoff, the U.S. envoy, to get to Russia next week to talk to Putin, if that is still happening. Because with the whole leaked phone call and all the other information that came out, it kind of puts everything up in the air. Now, if you are not knowing what I'm talking about, maybe because a lot of this happened after I sent out yesterday's newsletter, it was revealed, thanks to Bloomberg, that audio came out of Steve Witkoff essentially coaching the Russians on how to sell their plan to Trump. I know we joke about Trump being a Russian asset, and technically speaking, there's no evidence towards it, but in a way, this kind of proves that, yeah, deep down inside, Donald Trump was a kind of cog in this machine, and he didn't even realize it. Because in the phone calls, which you can go on Bloomberg, I would actually suggest sitting down and reading it. Yesterday we did a video actually going through a lot of it. Essentially, Witkoff talked about how to play up Trump for everything he did in Gaza. That's great. We always wanted peace. You're doing a great job. And then after that, the phone call will go well. And then it talks about how, well, you guys, meaning you should talk to Putin, you should have him call before Zelensky goes there for that Tomahawk meeting and say X, Y, and Z, essentially. Yeah, which means that almost in a way, Steve Witkoff was committing treason because he was allowing our enemy tools to kind of persuade our own president so that the Russians would go there, get their own things that they wanted. It's a big problem. And so today is a lot of the backlash. We're seeing U.S. senators and congressmen. We're seeing like people like Ryan Fitzpatrick all saying this is treason. We need Witkoff gone. Remember, Witkoff had zero, and I mean zero qualifications when it comes to speaking to world leaders or doing any foreign policy. But he's now broken rules that regular foreign teams normally have to follow or abide by, such as having a U.S. provided translator, which is actually the reason why the Alaska meeting even happened. And it wasn't supposed to, because either Putin lied to Witkoff or information got mixed up because, not having a right translator. And so it all brings it to, why is Steve Witkoff even doing these things? Should he even be the point person? Since it seems like there was a massive fight between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Witkoff, which is why Witkoff is actually not in Abu Dhabi and a couple other places doing these talks. Instead, they have the Secretary to the Army, Daniel Driscoll, which is a whole other thing because that position never did foreign policy, and for some reason now he is. So that's just another thing kind of out the door. But this all comes together to, we have a new peace plan. It's 19 points. It has not been fully published. There's a few different things that we know that have already came out, such as Ukraine's military will go from 600, which regional report is 500,000, to 800. And then the whole thing about Ukraine and NATO, Ukraine can join NATO, and NATO was not going to agree to limiting themselves. Yeah, and there's a few other things here. But it all brings us to the Russians, because now the United States, they said great progress has been made. We're going to hand this off to the Russians. The Russians got it. And we're getting a little bit of information from certain people, such as the Russian deputy foreign minister, who pretty much said, no, this does not address the core issues that we had. Which, let's be honest, are issues that Russia themselves just keep making up. It's not real, whether it was originally with biolabs and all these other things, mustache people in Ukraine, and ultimately, no, it's just Russia wants more land, and they're just willing to take out millions of their own in casualties, because why not? That's what they want to do. But that brings us to today, in which, yes, we did hear the deputy foreign minister in Russia say that, we're not giving up anything that we want. we want these things, and that's kind of it. And then you've got the Russians kind of responding to the leaked audio, because the leaked audio not only has Witkoff, it has Russian representatives, in which one of those Russian representatives says this is fake, even though it's not. And we know that because, first is they're saying that the United States is using their media as a hybrid war tool or weapon. And that's not true, because the U.S. government doesn't use the media, unlike Russia that has state media, and you can only publish what you want. And when you don't, and what I mean by what you want, I mean it's what the Russian government tells you. And when you don't publish what they tell you what to publish, they take you out or steal your money or kick you out of the country or put you in a work camp in Siberia. That's usually how that works. Anyway, this brings us to the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry, who is now weighing in on the phone call that was leaked or not leaked, because it was fake, but not fake. You see, they're going to start confusing people and throwing a bunch of stuff out there to confusing. That's like playbook number 4, page 17. It's let's just throw a crazy amount of information out there and hope that people get so confused they're just not interested anymore. But you and I are smart. We actually know what the heck is going on here. So back to Dmitry. Dmitry Peskov says that there's calls now to fire Steve Witkoff, and those calls exploded after these transcripts, and that he says that in these things there's nothing alarming. Remember, they already said it was fake. Now they're saying there's nothing in here that's alarming. And then he goes, even if they are real. But that doesn't make any sense. Make that make sense. And then he points out that Trump himself has already defended Witkoff, and according to Dmitry, he says that this is exactly what negotiators do. No, that's not what negotiators actually do, Dmitry. Because if I'm going for my best interest, I'm not going to go to my enemy and say, yo, how about you tell my boss X, Y, and Z, and we can get this deal done. Especially a deal in which the enemy brought over, which is going to hurt the person who's supposed to represent the United States and our partners. So no, that's not how the deal gets done. But remember, it's not real. It's not real. Do you see how the Russians are now trying to do all these weird little things, confuse you, make you feel like you have no idea what's going on? The bottom line is, it was a Russian plan. Witkoff had told the Russians how to get this plan approved by Trump so that he can sign it and say, Ukraine, you got to do it. They followed exactly what Witkoff did. And if the original 28-point plan was never leaked, then we would have, Ukraine would have been in a horrible position. But so many people came out, world leaders, you and me, Americans, Europeans, everyone came out and said, this is a horrible deal. We're not taking it. We were able to stop this. That's real journalism, just so you know. Between Politico, The Guardian, and Bloomberg, Financial Times as well, they put together this massive report, multiple ones, that have now allowed the world to see the horrible things that Russia is trying to do because of Steve Witkoff. So now we're seeing a lot of people to say Witkoff needs to be gone. We've been saying that for months on end. And that's where we find ourselves, in a position in which the United States, at least who is supposed to be working for the United States, was actively trying to mislead our president and screw over our allies. That, to me, in a way, is treason. And my question for you is, do you think Steve Witkoff should be tried for treason? I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on this. If you haven't done so yet, please do make sure you are following us on our TikTok channel. We're just about to hit 900,000 followers, which is crazy. Make sure you follow us on YouTube at Joey Contino News. That channel is growing like crazy. And I want to thank you guys for joining me. Do make sure you are subscribed, turn on notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. I'm Joey. Stay safe.